Ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to the Mile High Podcast. I am your host, James Thomas. We are here for the second week in a row, and as you will soon see, all of us have learned how to change our backgrounds. For the second week in a row, we have our team as ready and normal as usual. We have my buddy Dave. Dave, how are you doing today?
Hey, how's it going? I'm here in space, coming to you from some nebula.
Nice. Dave is out in space. Some old school learn me science shit from Dave. We also have with us, as always, Miss Nancy. Nancy, how are you this evening?
I'm doing very well. As you can see, I am in a fully stocked kitchen with an excellent chef. So life is good.
Nice. The life of the parsley burger is the burger of the day, which is super exciting. And with us, as always, from Nerd Corner Studios, which is actually right down below where I am, we have got the Nerd Corner guy himself, Chris. Chris, how are you doing today?
Oh, doing all right. Coming to you guys from a mall opening in Georgia. So, yeah.
Nice. The safest place to be right now.
Did you hit the beach afterwards? Your background is Shaun of the Dead, right?
No, Georgia.
He wasn't kidding.
It's a madhouse out here.
Tell them that Auntie Anne's is closed. They get no pretzels today.
You know, but right? I really could go for Cinnabon.
Right? I'm going to say Sabaro to be in this chat as well. Sabaro. So, and with us again, a very funny comedian. He is the host of the Santori Unplugged podcast on the World Wrestling Station. Oh, man, that really sucked, man. Do your own promotion, Mike. You're up. What's up, man?
What's up, man? World Generation Podcast. Wednesday nights. Santori Unplugged. But yeah, man,
I knew that. I got the Santori Unplugged thing. So I'd like to welcome everybody back. We're glad that Santori came back. We're glad having Nancy here. Nerd Corner is clearly having a great time shopping. And so what we're doing this week, we're going to do our weed and pop culture. Is what we're discussing and everything. And this is the music day, which means it is the least popular thing for me because I do not know as much as I would guarantee you these other four people will do. So I will just kind of mediate the conversation and they will discuss it. But to start off, as what have we been watching? Is there anything, anybody out there right now that has been watching something that they want to shout out and let me know? Dave, you always have a huge list. What do you got on your list?
All right, two things. First was Uncut Gems with Adam Sandler. He kind of plays a dirtbag that you do not feel sympathy for whatsoever. But it was a really good movie. And it was pretty intense. The whole movie was just intense. So that was a really good one. The second one is The Morning Show on Apple TV. It is with Steve Carell, Reese Witherspoon, and Jennifer Aniston. I went in expecting it to be a comedy, and in the first 5 minutes of the show, Steve Carell gets fired for sexual assault. And you're like, this is not what I expected, but it was just a fantastic show about dealing with Me Too in a very public setting, like a morning show. Very good show.
So it's a Matt Lauer biopic, you're saying?
Dude, I thought about that the whole time I was watching. It's like, is this what Matt Lauer was doing? Like, this is pretty fucked up. And it's really hard to watch Steve Carell sexually assault a woman. That was hard to do, but it was a great show. Great show.
And that's an Apple TV original, right?
Yeah, it is. And last thing, I finished that Beast Boys documentary, and that was fantastic. So definitely recommend that.
Do you happen to watch that Nicole Richie thing?
There you go. You have to fight.
That's a different service. Never mind. Sorry.
Nerd Corner, we'll go to you. Have you watched anything that you need to let us know about?
You know, not really. It's still just watching a lot of random YouTube stuff. Catching up on Castlevania on Netflix, which is actually pretty good. Just cheesy, but fun. I keep meaning to go back to Old Park because I loved the first season of Altered Carbon, and then they got Anthony Mackie in as the main character for season 2, which I love Anthony Mackie, but I've got like 1.5 episodes in, and I can't do it. I don't know
I'm right
why.
there with you on that. I loved the first season, and I really loved Joel McKinnon in that role. But he did such a good job in season 1 that Anthony Mackie just didn't recreate that same kind of person. Like, they were two completely different people, which I guess is kind of the show. But if they're the same person, even in different bodies, I think that they would be more like each other.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the biggest thing. And I'm like, because I normally like Anthony Mackie, it's like him in all the Marvel stuff, but you could tell he was playing somebody in a sleeve, or the parlance, if you don't watch the show, you're in consciousness in somebody else's body. So it's definitely like a fish out of water thing, but it doesn't feel like the same character that we met from the first season. So that's kind of disappointing, but I figure I'm going to go back to The Expanse soon. I'm way behind on this, so that next week, hopefully I'll have some Expanse to talk about.
I don't know what is more annoying, Santori's wind tunnel effect or the zombies that are trying to. I'm like so distracted. I get so easily distracted. And every time those people come up on your background, I completely lose what conversation we're having.
All right, here I'll find a different background on there. I don't want that throwing off.
I like the background a lot. Nancy, what have you been watching?
Oh, mostly old stuff. Oh, new stuff. I watched Mrs. America. It was great. It was really good. It was, it's the story of like the women's lib movement, kind of told from the perspective of like the anti-women's lib side a little bit. They aren't kind to them in the story, but it was interesting to see their perspective, and every single actress in it was incredible. I can't think of her name right now. Is it Kate
Blanchett?
Kate Blanchett.
Yeah, she's amazing. So that was very good. And I've been watching Love is Blind as my guilty pleasure this week. It's a really weird show where people get married sight unseen, kind of. Well, they get engaged sight unseen, but then they have to get married in like 30 days or something. And it's very interesting, although they haven't put any unattractive people on it. So we'll see how that works out when they start doing that. And as far as old stuff, I am watching Schitt's Creek, which I'd heard really good things about and just never got a chance to start. I like it.
It's a great show.
A lot of my personal friends had actually said that they didn't like it, that they found the characters unlikable, that it wasn't relatable. But I don't necessarily agree. I think the cast is really strong, and I held out for that, and it caught on eventually. So it was good.
Yeah, I love Schitt's Creek. It's a great show.
Yeah.
So before I go to Santori for him to tell us what he's been watching from the 1980s, I'm sure, I have been watching Schitt's Creek because I have heard wonderful things about this show, Schitt's Creek, and I'm about 8 episodes into the first season, and it is pretty fascinating. It's Eugene Levy, it's Chris Elliott, so that's pretty interesting. Santori.
What was the name of that show that Chris Elliott used to have? Didn't he have one where he was like a paper boy?
Get a Life.
His Cabin Boy was his movie, Cabin Boy.
Yeah. I have to admit I watched that. I don't know.
There's nothing wrong with watching Get a Life. It's a great show.
32%.
Right.
As somebody who came in late, I'm really confused. Is Santori waiting for Johns? Because that's what it looks like from here. Hey, Santori.
That is what he's doing.
What's going on?
You look
We're
like
having
you're
a
waiting
show
on the
here. That's
street
what's going
corner
on.
for
I
somebody
don't
to
know if
pick
you
you
know that.
up.
Well, a lot's going on over here. I have a visitor that just popped out of nowhere that we thought we were going to like have him be on our video, but instead he's in my porch.
Did this visitor most recently have the COVID-19 virus, and he's visiting you?
Yeah, that's right. Get out of my house. Get out. You've got corona. You were sick. I can't kick him out. Screw it. I'm going to get sick, and it's all your fault.
That's weird.
Get the hell out of here. He ain't going.
Santori,
Movies?
tell me your movies tell me what TV shows. No, your TV shows that you've been watching from the 1980s, because we know you can only watch things off of the television.
Hey, come on now. It's not the 80s. It's the 90s. Home Improvement. Murphy Brown.
Okay,
You know what I'm saying? Murphy Brown.
Free Brand's great.
Murphy
You know.
Brown's a good show.
Yeah, Married with Children. Come on. It's all 90s. There's no 80s movies. Shows. But there is,
Nice.
I did get caught up on a movie I haven't seen ever, and it's from 2003. It's called Nobody's Baby, and it has Gary Oldman in it. I don't know if you guys ever seen it.
Does it end up being anybody's baby?
I don't know. I just started watching it last night, but it looks really cool and interesting and bizarre and crazy. So it's entertainment for the first 5 minutes. So if you're looking for an entertainment movie in the first 5 minutes, I recommend that. So I can't say the ending because I really don't know. I just started watching it, but I haven't really been watching any movies except for that.
You know, what's kind of fun, Santori, is that CBS has brought back the Sunday night movie. So every Sunday night they play like a classic movie. Like they just played Indiana Jones, I think this last Sunday, and they have another like Back to the Future, some kind of movie like that coming up this week.
Okay. Well, Sunday night. That's the night I rearranged my sock drawer that night, so I'm not gonna be able to see anything. But I don't know.
They've brought back the CBS movies on Sunday night.
But
which is
man, I
crazy.
just gotta get to that sock. Underwear is where it's fine. Yeah, no, that's on Saturday. No, I will check that out. I'll check that out.
I'll let you start us off, Santori. What are you smoking?
I am smoking a name. I don't know the name of it, but it's 32%. That's what I call it, 32%.
Ooh.
Yes, and I actually had to buy.
You know what one of our guests taught us?
Huh?
You want to know what one of our guests taught us? She said it's the best analogy, and I use it all the time when I go into dispensaries. She said judging entirely off of the percentage is like walking into a liquor store and telling them to give you the cheapest bottle of Everclear that you can ever have. It is not going to define taste or the kind of high you gave. So that's a shout out to our guest, Courtney Gunn. I use that analogy all the time.
As a former alcoholic, that is an effective way to drink, though. If you go in, they will gladly do that for you.
Right. They do listen, Santori and I used to go to a bar in Orlando where they would have Jungle Gyms and they would have well drinks. And it was like, who made this tequila? They're like, oh, we're not going to say it's just tequila. It's just a giant jug and it says tequila, rum, vodka.
3 X's underneath the bottle, or
It's in a giant yellow label with just black letters that say tequila.
Right. It was the classic thing. Well, Dave, what are you smoking?
So I'm going into my stash, and tonight we are doing the Mandarin Dream. So it's a hybrid. I normally go hybrids, but this one is like the perfect blend of chill and creativity. So I'm digging on that.
Nice. And what about you? First, did your parents buy you that weed?
This is actually the weed they bought me last week. So yes, technically this is the weed that my mom and dad bought me.
oh,
Isn't that adorable?
How cute. That's adorable. Nerd Corner, what are you smoking on tonight?
a random indica. No idea what it is.
Random indica is almost always the Nerd Corner. Oh my goodness. We have somebody on our thing. Is that DW? Did we just see DW on our show?
Yes, you did. You want to talk to him?
Yeah, put DW on.
Hold on. Video. Want to be on video? Why not? Can you hear us?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Yeah,
right.
you can talk.
Go ahead, caller.
You want to talk?
You're number 10.
Is this a podathon or something? I heard it's like a
the
4-day session, podcast session.
Yeah, we're talking weed and music, and I think you have a lot to bring to that conversation, so you should jump on.
All right, I'm going to do that.
Well, all right. That's all it took.
Social distancing the way that DW has always liked it. Way far away from everybody else. Nancy, what are you smoking?
Redheaded Stranger from Agati.
Everybody loves a Gotti and some redheaded stranger.
Well, they're close. They have good deals.
Well,
This
that's
is
the
the
key.
longest we've gone without talking about Rocky Road.
Yeah, we haven't been going to Rocky Road. I don't think any of us have, unless your parents go for you, Dave.
I miss my Rocky Road people. They were always awesome.
Especially
Yeah.
that old lady who shall remain nameless.
Dave's an old lady. Yeah. I'm smoking glass apple pee-pee.
You're smoking glass?
What? Apple pee-pee.
Glass apple pee-pee. I'm sure that's
I heard ass apple
something
pee-pee.
else, but that's how they ended. It's a sativa pee-pee, like pee-pee. Like pee-pee. So that's a good segue into music. That is our main subject of the show. That segue was written by Mike Santori. Mike Santori, when you need a segue that doesn't work, look to Mike. So we got a couple questions on here. Dave has, of course, given me a list of stuff. So we're just going to start this off, and I am going to start off with our duo team, the newlywed team of Santori and DW. The first question about weed and music is, what era of music do you feel was most influenced by weed? You get to tell us what you think first, and everybody else gets to tell you why you're wrong. Go, Santori.
60s.
You're wrong.
I already know.
The
Wrong.
60s.
I don't disagree. I agree with Santori on that. I totally agree with Santori on that.
Thank you, David.
And
I was just being
interesting.
contrary. No, I think you're spot on that one. You really can't have one without the other when it comes to pod and music from that era.
No.
Yeah,
Now, the 60s aren't huge as far as, like, they weren't out, like, nowadays they will straight tell you to take hits from the bong and straight toke it. So I guess the question that I would have to you is, if it was the most influenced by weed, why don't I hear, like, them constantly talking about weed?
because you're not listening to the right songs. Because they talk about weed in all of them, in a lot of those songs, especially like the '60s rock bands. The Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. We're talking, the Doors. We're talking Grateful Dead. Obviously, they're very thick with talking about weed. I mean, their music and weed went synonymously with each other, and their lyrics represent that. They talk about it all the time. Very blatantly.
They didn't want any songs from the Tambourine Man. That's for sure.
They didn't want Puff
Right.
that Magic
And
Dragon.
that's just what I was trying to reference. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to reference. It's not like they were outward about it. Nancy, what do you think?
They're pretty outward.
You do a music show. Were they outward? Do you feel like the 60s were outward about their marijuana use in their music?
So marijuana and music go back way further than that, actually.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So do you agree with?
No,
So
I
we got
don't
it from the Nerd Corner and Dave. Oh, okay, Nancy. So what era of music do you have? What do you believe is the most influenced by weed, and why are these three wrong?
I would. Well, I didn't want to say like the early 20th century jazz. I mean, aside from the stereotypes, and yeah. Louis Armstrong, he talked about smoking weed and how it affected his ability to write music. And that's really what we were getting at, is how did weed affect the music culture? It wasn't talked about at all. Most jazz didn't even have lyrics, but it very much affected how they wrote, their creativity, their ability to experiment. Yeah. So I would say it was 30s, maybe, jazz that was the most influenced by it.
So,
By the 60s, it wasn't a music era, it was the entire culture. That to me, and the music wasn't affected by the weed as much as it was, the music was a way to share weed stories. And you didn't hear about it in the music because they couldn't talk about it. So it was all in code.
Well, I think that's a big distinction there, because it's, as far as influence in the actual music, I definitely think you're right there on jazz. I think the 60s, like you said, though, it was definitely more, even when it was coded, I think it was more in the forefront of the wider culture.
Yeah.
But as far as the actual, like, structural music, then jazz, definitely. They were all getting hot.
Yes, very much so. There was a lot of it. And it spread through from South America and Mexico into the South, and I mean, not the racial thing, but the jazz music culture in general, it appealed to them. And like I said, it sparked creativity, and they explored. That's why jazz is really out there. If you listen to their music, they make rules and then break them all the time. The best way to describe it is it's musical masturbation. It's literally just somebody fucking around with the rules and then bending them every once in a while.
Well, it's part of the reason
Chris
pop's been
loves
so.
masturbation analogies.
But you look at
Chris
it's part of the reason.
masturbation analogies.
But you look at it's part of the reason that pop was illegal for as long as it was. It was you have to keep those white women away from the jazz clubs.
Yep.
Yeah, what's incredible, this is what's incredible to me about weed and music is that it has been going on since the turn of the century, and I guarantee that as marijuana was proliferating through South America into Mexico, music went along with it. So how many cultural songs from these Latin American people have songs about weed that are fucking like hundreds of years old? So
that's actually it's an interesting point, because I didn't want to take it back that far. I figured we keep it to American culture at least. But yeah, I mean, if you think about it, the weed that influenced jazz musicians came across with South American tribal, cultural practices that included music as well. I mean, theirs may have had more of a religious or a tradition connotation to it, but absolutely the marijuana was a part of that experience too. And I mean, then you can go back even further, because music, there's a lot of debate about when music really started and how it started. But I mean, there's a very good chance that those marijuana or peyote induced types of tribal events way back thousands of years ago were also influenced by whatever drugs they were doing, and that influenced their music, which at the time was just drums and singing to gods or whatever, but it expanded throughout. So it's always influenced music.
Man, this show just got deep. This is the deepest show we've got.
Now,
for the
I mentioned
anthropology
that I
deep
do have a
cuts.
music show coming up, and I'm actually going to talk about the history of music in depth in my first episode. It's really interesting. So, yeah. But yeah,
That was the best plug we had. That was.
Somebody got high and picked up a whale bone or a bear bone, I think it was, and they just, they drilled a hole in it, and they were like, "Oh shit, it whistles!" Like
that plug was so much better than Santori's segue. So that I really enjoyed. And I'll start with you, since you're the only one, Nancy, who went against the grain. So we've been through music since the beginning. You took us back to the beginning. Today, though, it's all over the place. I hear it in rock. I hear it in rap. I hear it in pop. I hear it in country. What genre? Where's the genre? What's the genre nowadays?
I don't know. I think it's like beer. I don't think you can attach it to a current music genre right now. I think every genre, I mean, even television shows, like primetime television shows, have people joking about edibles, So I don't know, because I saw that, Dave's wonderful outlines. I thought about this question a lot, and I was all over the place when I looked at it, and I'm thinking, I don't even catch, there's no more inside weed references in music anymore, because they don't have to code it anymore. So now if they talk about it so nonchalant, I don't even notice. But yeah.
What do you think about that, Santori? Do you think that weed can be defined to a genre nowadays? Can weed be defined to one genre of music nowadays?
I mean, sure. Why not? I mean, it's like not going anywhere, and it's legal in a lot of states, and it needs to be legal everywhere. So yeah, I'm for it.
Man, I can tell when Santori gets super duper stoned, because his answers become like these just like closing out areas.
Right.
Chris, what do you think about that? What nowadays is Nancy right? Is there a genre that represents weed?
No, I don't think currently. Yeah, no, I can't think of anything that would be as representative. I mean, you had rock for a long time. That would be the genre that, at least in pop culture, the last 40, 50 years, where it was heavily associated. You had in the 90s and 2000s, it was really tied in with hip hop, but now like Nancy was saying, it's kind of everywhere. So I don't think you have any one style now that has a sort of monopoly on weed, or one that's even that you would think of as being the most synonymous, because it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
Dave, your question seems bunked. Do you have an answer that unbunks your question? Is there a genre of music that you would say define?
I think nowadays, no, I don't think you really can. But the whole reason I think why we're in a place now where weed really can be defined is because of that early 90s rap. Because early 90s rap, they really talked a lot about smoking weed in those albums, and they went massive. Fucking Dr. Dre, The Chronic was massive. And those people who grew up listening to The Chronic are now making the marijuana laws. I mean, now it's to a point where you can't but define it by a genre, but it's because of that explosion of the weed culture in 1990s hip hop that we are where we are today. The end.
Interesting. And do you think that where we are with legalization today, or just as far as the music, do you think 90s hip hop mainstreamed the marijuana?
Oh yeah, 90s pop culture, marijuana and pop culture set the groundwork for today. You can definitely tie back current marijuana laws with how much they were inundated with weed and pop culture at that time.
Yeah.
So we learned to smoke weed from the 90s, but we haven't learned from arresting black people and beating them down for no reason from the 90s. So
No.
It's a weird thing that happens. Dave, take it off. Is there one band, song, or album that you think most represents weed to you? What is it? What is your one band, song, or album that represents weed to you?
Well, as you can see, my background has changed. Well, there you go. Fucking Dr. Dre's The Chronic, to me, is the epitome of music and weed. It's literally named The Chronic, and it's the whole album of talking about smoking weed. And we were in high school, and we had impressionable brains, and we listened to this album, and we fucking smoked a shit ton of weed to this album. So to me, even though I'm a full-blown metalhead, this album and music, they go hand in hand. I can't have one without the other. And it just became available on Spotify. So
it's a great choice in album. It's definitely, there's a difference between the original Chronic and the Chronic 2000.
No, the actual Chronic is on Spotify now.
In my personal.
Sorry, I interrupt you.
Yeah, it has a strong place in music. No, I think our audio fell off a little bit, but no, it has a strong place in my music and smoking history. So I definitely say good call on that. Santori, you tell me, is there one particular band, song, or album that you think best represents weed and pop culture, or weed to you in general?
Anything by Bob Marley.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep.
You went with artist.
Yep.
I had an ex-girlfriend whose dad was a security guard in Hawaii, and when Bob Marley came out there, Bob Marley was not popular in Hawaii. He was not like he was in the States at this point. So when he came out to do a concert, like 16 people showed up. And so when the 16 people showed up, Bob Marley came out. He's like, I'm not doing this. This is ridiculous. Just come up on stage. We'll smoke some weed, and I'll just play some music for you guys. And they sat and smoked weed and played music for 3 hours because Hawaii did not give a shit about Bob Marley for a long time after he became big. Chris, what about you? You got a band, a song, an album that makes you think that represents weed to you, or weed and pop culture in general?
Honestly, I hadn't even thought about Marley until Santori said it, but definitely Marley's in there. As far as an actual song, though, just Weed Song by Bone Thugs and Harmony, because I remember smoking a lot of blunts to that song in high school. Like,
Bone and
yeah.
weed go hand in hand as well, man. I love Bone too. Bone is great.
Oh yeah.
Nancy, what about you? Where's
cheap.
your mind on this?
I was just
Okay.
gonna go. I mean, every generation, as we've established, has had weed references in their stuff. So I don't want to give it to first, but I will say, for me personally, in my childhood or teenage years, anyways, it was just in general 90s West Coast hip hop. That could be Tupac, Dr. Dre, Cypress Hill. They all very much influenced all of the good and bad decisions that I made in those formidable years. And a lot of it had to do with smoking a shit ton of weed. So, but yeah, I think that would be it.
A lot of weed was consumed to those rap groups in the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I can remember
So much.
listening to Cypress Hill hits from the bong. I want to get high, like just over and over and over and over as I took hits from my bong.
See, so one of mine that I'm going to go with, and this one I actually have an answer for, my relation to weed and music that stands out the most would be Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and that's because there is a reason specifically for that. When I first went to college in Greeley, I met this guy named Ben Brubaker, and he's exactly what every hippie that you ever thought would be. He had long hair, a long beard. He wore shoes that were painted different colors and everything. And he would have me come over to his house. The dude had no TV, but he would literally give me just high as shit. And we listened to stupid Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band like 100 times over every time I went there. Like, he had to play it at least once when we got in there and described every single song with me. And so it was just it's what I imagined it was probably like for people in like the late 60s and everything. And just getting high and no TV, none of that other shit. It was just been really fucking like just chilling out. And so that's my relation to it in a personal way. I think it's about a lot more drugs than weed, that particular album especially. But yeah, that's the one I associate it with. I'm going to start off the next part, which was a concert, because I've only been to a handful of concerts. I've been to maybe like 5 in my day. So
most recently with the
I'd
Mile
have to
High
go down to.
Podcast.
I did go to a concert with the Mile High Podcast. That was a great one. That was a good one. It's in my top 5. But I'm going to say the best concert that I personally ever saw, the one I enjoyed the most. I saw Garth Brooks in concert, and I think Garth Brooks puts on an absolutely amazing concert. He came out of the piano. He runs all over the stage. He really made those stadium concerts his bitch in the late 90s. And so I don't have a large thing to pick from. So I'm going to go with Garth Brooks. Garth Brooks is a good place to go. I'm going to go to Chris because I can make this reference early. Chris, was the best concert you ever went to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coming out of their shell concert?
I think I still have the cassette tape somewhere, so I'm looking forward to finding that when I go through all my stuff. First concert, which
was
is
that with Vanilla Ice?
no,
Ninja,
this
Go Ninja Go.
this was they had like a Turtles group in the 90s. And like Shredder did a rap song, they did soft rock. It was weird. It was the 90s though. So first concert. For me, like individual concerts, I'd say BB King and the Eagles both put on fantastic shows. No Doubt, absolutely amazing. And I'm not the biggest No Doubt fan. Like, I like the music, but it was not one of those bands. I'm like, I have to see them live. They were great. System of a Down is great. As far as consistency, though, got to go with 9 Inch Nails. I've seen Trent like 6 times now, I think, from really small venue shows to stadium shows, and just always amazing. And it was interesting because he's an artist who's known for the big stage shows and the huge production. And the first couple times I saw it was really small venues, and only recently got to see the full-on touring stage show and that whole production. So that was amazing. Although I will give a honorable mention to Jane's Addiction. Never been a big Jane's Addiction fan, but I saw them touring years ago, actually with Nine Inch Nails, and Trent didn't give a fuck that night, so Nine Inch Nails was just kind of awful. Jane's Addiction, surprisingly really entertaining.
I saw that same show, and I think we were at the same concert, dude. And I don't know what you're talking about, but Nine Inch Nails always throws down.
No, the one he did in California, Trent did not give a shit, and the person I was dating at the time actually messaged, did a tweet or something of, because it was her first time seeing it. It's like, give a shit next time, and he responded, it's like, yeah, give me an audience that gives a shit. So Trent,
that wasn't here in Denver though, right?
No, that was out in
Yeah, 'cause
California.
we fucking tore it up in Denver.
Yeah, and that's why I was surprised. It was an aberration there, but Trent was being a little pouty that night. But luckily, Jane's Addiction, did they somewhat redeem it?
Were they caught
Street
stealing
Sweeper
the show?
Social Club, who opened that show, they fucking blew the house up too. I mean, it's a great band. It's like a Rage Against the Machine and Bootsy Collins.
Yes, I got in right at the end of Street Sweeper
They were
because we were
fantastic.
waiting in line. Yeah, that's what I'd heard about them.
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, so I'm gonna just kind of jump after Chris.
I was going to say, Dave, I'm going to go to you.
look at my fucking
because of your
background.
background.
Yeah, so I've been a huge Nine Inch Nails fan for a really long time. And the top 3 favorite concerts I have are all Nine Inch Nails shows, just different ones.
Wow.
But then the number 1 was Nine Inch Nails opened for David Bowie in the late 90s.
Oh.
It was fucking incredible. Like, I had never seen David Bowie. I've known of David Bowie, but up to then, he was just the dude from Labyrinth. And that I was introduced to fucking David Bowie after he opened, or after my favorite band opened for him. So that's a memory I'll keep with me my entire life. It was such an incredible show.
Nice.
Yeah.
I do have to share one Nine Inch Nails thing that we were at. What was that trend every couple of years says he's going to stop. What ended up being the last planned Nine Inch Nails show they had. So the people watching there was fun, but I remember cracking up because we were in the pit and turning around, and right in the front row in the balcony, it's Penn and Rick Rubin, which is just the oddest fucking duo to see at a concert.
Weird. Like Penn from Penn and Teller?
Yes, and Rick Rubin with the gigantic beard.
Right. Weird. That would be weird. Santori, what about you, man? What is the best concert you've ever been to? Are you a Nine Inch Nails guy?
I'm a Nine Inch Nails guy, but the best concert I ever went to was Sinatra in '92 at Joe Louis Arena in Detroit.
Wow, that's awesome.
Respect.
That is.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I did not see that going.
Yeah, no, Sinatra all day. I was very fortunate to see him. So. Sinatra.
I was going to say, yeah, because Sinatra was not young in '92. No.
So, yeah, I was very lucky to be able to see him before the great man left. So, yeah, Sinatra all day.
Weird. I'm going to ask, what's the worst concert you ever seen, just out of curiosity, Santori?
Oh, man, that's a good question because there's a lot of them. I would have to say fucking Limp Bizkit at Ozfest. They were terrible. Fred Durst sucked.
I didn't know. You didn't need to tell us any more than Limp Bizkit. Limp Bizkit covered that whole thing.
All right, good.
What about you, Nancy? What's your favorite concert?
Okay. So there were 2. When I was little, I really liked Bob Dylan, and my parents had taken me to this thing. It was an Amnesty International concert. I don't know. It's an organization that ends child slavery and all kinds of things, supposedly. Anyways, it was like, yeah, but it was like Peter Gabriel, Bob Dylan, Tracy Chapman, Sting, like a wide variety of early 80s type stuff. And Bob Dylan came, and I knew all his songs, and I was little, like 6 or 7 maybe, and we were towards the front of the stage, and I started singing along, and everybody thought it was weird somebody so little knew every word to every Bob Dylan song, and they were like, put her on the stage, put her on the stage. But my dad, of course, isn't going to let anybody take me up. He was like, no. And so then at the end of the song, though, Dylan did, I swear to God, walked over, shook my hand, and was like, hey, baby, I'm sorry, and just like, thanks for singing along, and walked off. and it was really cool. That was a cool experience. But my favorite concert personally overall, I went to this thing called Reggae on the River. It's a 3-day camping music festival in Northern California. These old hippies bought a bunch of property up in the redwood forests, and so for 3 days they have a permit for a giant party. But because it's a party and it's not a concert venue, like there's no police, there's no law enforcement, and you camp there. So there's just, it's wild for 3 days, and it's all reggae music. And like the year I went, it was their 20th anniversary, so they had like Jimmy Cliff, they had like some of the Marley family. I can't remember which one because a couple of them do things.
So many
They
of
had
them.
Culture.
Yeah, there's
Lemony.
constantly a Marley kid touring around
Yeah.
somewhere.
I mean,
And they
maybe
all look
of
like
them.
Bob Marley, but they
Yeah.
all look exactly like Bob Marley. It's amazing.
They do. Yeah, it's very, very tough. So
Some
it
very
was
strong
really
genes.
fucked up. Like I said, like you're just walking around and girls are belly dancing and whispering, I got coke, I got shrooms, like in your ear. And you just, I mean, people just follow people into tents. It was, I've never seen, it was like Woodstock. But, and it's amazing because all the cops and paramedics wait right outside the property line, just in case, like, because they will carry sick people towards the property or whatever. And they have like an emergency thing inside, but there's no police allowed on there. So it's very, very wild. And the nearest city is like a 40-minute drive away. You're in the forest, super high, just listening to reggae. And it doesn't stop. Like they close for like 2 hours from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. That's it. So it was
That's how
intense.
Miami rolls.
It was intense. It was really, really fun. And that was probably the best concert. Other than that, I spent a lot of time going to rap concerts and then realizing that it's not that impressive. Like, I'd rather hear it on the album itself, I guess. I don't know. It's just, I don't know. And then same thing with bands. Sometimes I go see them live and I'm disappointed. Like Chris's experience with Trent, not that that's necessarily the case all the time, but even if they're just having an off night, I hate to pay a lot of money for big names when they aren't as good as I know they should be that night. Whereas I love to walk into like a dive bar real cheap and find a local band that you didn't expect to be good and have them surprise you. That's my favorite thing.
Chris, you look like you wanted to jump in on that.
No, I was just thinking about one of my best experiences of having low expectations and having them completely met, falling asleep through Disturbed at a festival concert. And it was great. It had been a long day, and Disturbed was the next band on. I'm like, I have like 45 minutes. The person who I was dating at the time did not like that, but yeah, I slept. It was awesome.
Nice.
They flew off in a
do that
helicopter at
too.
the end because they think they're, I don't know.
I, as a kid,
Nice.
liked New Kids on the Block, and I went to their concert. So then, as an older adult, my sister, who's significantly younger than me, wanted to go to NSYNC for her birthday, and I volunteered to do the driving so she didn't have to go with her mom and her friends. And I bought a beer, and I was ready to just sit down and be bored for I don't even know how many hours. And then I was pleasantly surprised to find out that unlike New Kids on the Block, they really could at least sing. Like, I didn't love their songs, but at least they could really kind of sing. And that was interesting. So I got to see Justin Timberlake, and that was fun. But
Well, actually, your host, James, here, was a rather large fan, had the poster on his wall, and had our mother drive him. He could not get the concert tickets, but take him to sit outside the concert so he could listen to the boys singing.
I'm so sorry.
Let's find out who has their
You
picture
should have driven my
underneath
sister.
that poster.
Because I was a little kid and you were like,
I am-
stand there. And you were my big brother. Of course I'm going to stand somewhere. You're like, yeah, I got that photo beneath the poster I had hanging in my room.
I don't know why people
I
did that kind
fooled
of
you
stuff.
guys.
We all did weird stuff like that. Also, when I was a kid, we lived near the Coliseum in our city. I lived in Oakland, and so there were times where we would honestly just pull, like, my dad and grandma hated this, but we'd pull the living room couch out on our porch and just sit out on the porch in the summer and listen to music for free. But I didn't get to see the shows. But it was all kinds of people. So
Well, and that's one thing I hate, actually, just with the concerts in general, with everything moving to like the indoor shows, is you don't have those venues. Because I think a lot of people growing up had that place where you could go outside and hear it. And now it's like everything's inside an indoor stadium. And you can't go get high and hang out with your friends in the car out in the parking lot and just listen.
stupid. You would think the venues would want that because, I mean, it still brings in other forms of business. I mean, I know they're technically stealing the show, but they don't get to see it that way. And they're still, you know, they're going to go spend money at those restaurants and stuff nearby too. You would think people would make it easier, but I guess from a performer's perspective, maybe they don't want to share their show for free. So.
Very true. And that is why Nancy hosts the music show on for Trucking Pacific, because she knows that much about music. We're going to do something very weird because we're about to go to James's game, but to make this cut and edit a little easier, I'm going to do a quick circle of plugs, and then I'm going to read some of her information. I'm going to read at the end of James's game as well. We plug Nancy's show. It's going to be coming around soon. I definitely hope. We hope this month.
Yes.
Third Corner, what do you got going on?
Just the streams are still intermittent right now, but had different gaming streams up. So we have the Jackbox. I've been doing a lot of art and VR with Tilt Brush and a couple different things I'm working on there, but twitch.tv/nerd_corner, and then whatever other stuff I'm throwing up under the Nerd Corner playlist on Truckee Pacific page.
Nice. Santori, what do you got going on, man? Do a promotion. Give me one more promotion out of you.
All right. Santori Unplugged, World Generation Podcast, Wednesday nights, 8 o'clock, Colorado, 9 o'clock, Minnesota, 10 o'clock, Orlando, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. And see some videos from me on Facebook, Santori on Facebook.
What time is it on in Terre Haute, Indiana?
That would be at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock.
I think it'd be 9 o'clock.
No, it'd be 10 o'clock.
I
I think it'd be 10 o'clock.
I don't think they follow daylight savings time. So that's the question. If you know, say that in the comments. But Dave's guessing 9. Santori's saying 10.
That's horrifying.
What time you can listen to a show in Terre Haute, Indiana. There's a cat. Dave,
Sorry, I was
pitch,
looking
man.
at
What do you need to
the
do? What do you need to know for you?
Showing, sorry.
That was funny.
Dave,
So
you got a pitch for me?
yeah, right now, my son and I, we finally watched Lost Boys together. So we did Mile High Podcast reviews where we're reviewing Lost Boys. I did a Race to Space read-along podcast this week. Put that up. Recording the next one. And that's pretty much all I got going on. I'm editing my book. I just finished the second draft, so got one more draft to go before I send it to the publisher. So that's what I've been working on right now.
Very nice.
Nice. Very exciting. Well, guys, if you need to reach us, thank you for being there for this first half of the Mile High Podcast. You can reach us at Facebook at the Mile High Podcast and at Truckee Pacific on Facebook. You can find Santori at Santori on Facebook. He's got a lot of likes on his page. If you want to like his show, you can go to the Santori Unplugged Facebook page from there. Our Instagram is at Mile High Podcast. You can find us, you can email us at milehighpodcast@gmail.com and Truckee Pacific Productions. That is a very long name, but you can email us at that at gmail.com.
It's because Truckee Pacific was already taken. I had to be creative.
I think I might own that. You can get us at Twitter at High Podcast. And if you like giving us money, go to Vimo and give us money at High Podcast. Venmo. Damn it, I tried to do it right.
Don't get the money one wrong.
All right, so we're about to do James's game. So if you want to stick around for that, please do so. Other than that, thank you for tuning in. There you go.
Yeah, let's get it rolling. All right. Quiet. You hear it? My claps suck. I'm sorry. I'm not a good clapper.
Your claps
right.
are weak, but
Quiet real quick. 1, 2, 3.
His claps aren't any better than my claps are.
Well, I have 2 layers of pop stoppers and filters on here.
right.
So you guys never go to
You guys
church?
are all over the place.
1, 2, 3. Was that one louder?
It's all the
That's
same.
funny.
All right, everyone stop clapping. We're done clapping. All right. Ready?
Yeah, go.
3, 2, 1.